This is video 1 from Unit 8, Lesson 1. This is the first video, the first lesson for Unit 8. We're going to start talking about quadratics. The first 4 lessons will be over solving quadratics. Okay, so now we're going to solve quadratic equations by taking square roots, and we'll round those to a specified place value. Okay, so first of all, quadratic equations are y equals x squared. So what makes it a quadratic equation is the exponent of 2. So if it has an exponent of 2, then it's a quadratic equation. A lot of times we see it in this form, but the most basic form is this y equals x squared. You can have 2 solutions, 1 solution, or 0 solutions. So typically you have 2 solutions. So when you're solving, you'll get like x equals 3 or x equals 2. Sometimes you can have 1 solution, and that would just be if you happen to get 3 twice, or you could have no solution. Okay, so we're going to solve quadratic equations with square roots. So our goal here is to get this x squared by itself. So to get the x squared by itself, just like if this were an x. So I want to add 9 to both sides. So I have x squared equals 9. And then we take the square root. To get rid of a square, you take the square root. So x equals, so the square root of 9. So that means what times itself gives you 9? 3. However, we get 2 answers here because not only does 3 times 3 equal 9, but so does negative 3 times negative 3. That also gives you positive 9. So x equals 3 or x equals negative 3. So this has 2 solutions. Okay, so we're going to solve using square roots if we just have the x squared. Like, we don't have x squared, so here's the x squared and x. If we have both of those, we'll have to use a different method. But with just the x squared, we use square roots. Okay, so let's do a few more. Okay, so I want to get the x squared by itself. Let's divide by 2. (98) divided by 2 is 49. And then square root. So square root of 49 is 7 or negative 7. So we can write that as plus or minus. So this plus minus means you have 2 solutions, positive 7 and negative 7. Okay, next problem. Add 25. Take the square root of both sides. You should have a square root button in your calculator, so it should be next to the squared button. It could be maybe a second x squared, depending on the calculator you have. Alright, the square root of 25 is 5, but it could also be negative 5. So plus or minus 5. Okay, now for this next one, this one's a little trickier because the square is on the outside of this parentheses. So I can't get inside x plus 2 until I get rid of this square. Well, to get rid of a square, we square root. Okay, square root of 16 is positive or negative 4. We are going to subtract 2 because x isn't by itself yet. So right now I have plus or minus 4 minus 2. So I have 2 answers. I have x equals positive 4 minus 2, which is 2. And then I have negative 4 minus 2, which is negative 6. So my 2 answers are 2 and negative 6. Same kind of thing over here. we're going to add 17. Alright, so I get x minus 9 squared equals 17. And then I have to square root x minus 9 to get rid of the square. Okay, so that's x minus 9 equals plus or minus. So square root of 17, you'll notice in your calculator, gives you this long decimal. It's irrational. So for now, let's just leave it as square root 17. Okay, add 9. So I have 9 plus or minus square root of 17. So this is an exact answer. That means a non-rounding answer. If it asks you to round, let's say to the hundredth place, 2 decimal places, so square root of 17, and our calculators gave us 4.12. So that means x is approximately 9 plus 4.12, which is 13.12, or 9 minus 4.12, which is 4.88. So either way, it depends how they have your answer. If it's a decimal, then you'll round. If it's not, then you just leave it in radical form. We can't square root 17 without getting a long decimal. Okay? Let's look at this one. So, get the x squared by itself. Let's subtract 16. Zero minus 16 is negative 16. Square root. X equals, so if you type in square root of negative 16 in your calculator, you get an error. That's because you can't square root negative numbers. So if this is the case, you get a negative number under the square root, and that means there's no solution. Okay? All right, let's do Unit 8, Assignment 1.